All right, so we're here for another episode of the E91 Paddock GTS Tribute build, and we're at a really important part. This is the paint portion, and we're here with Brad Samuels of Samuels Auto Body. We're gonna kind of talk through the processes that go into like what happens now that we have the fenders on the car, what's gonna happen next with the process. It's on the ground in your shop. What have you gone through so far?
We need to get the panels all lined up. All the panel alignment completely done where we're totally satisfied with that before we go any farther. From that point, we take the whole car apart, strip all the panels to bare metal, basically work them back up with different primers, hopefully not much filler.
Yeah, so the doors come off the car, all of the bolts, like the fenders bolt on, the hood comes off, all the glass is removed. So once it's all sanded, what's the next part that happens?
It basically gets prepped and set up to be painted and gets sprayed.
So it goes in the booth?
Yep, it goes in the paint booth.
Goes in the paint booth, and then all of the main components are painted together?
Yeah, everything that's bolt on the body panels, they'll all get painted all in one shot. The doors will be swung open and shut during the paint process, just like the robots do. Yep.
So that's done, and then the fenders are also painted at that time?
Yep.
And then the bumpers are painted?
There'll be separate sets of colored painted parts that'll be separate, yeah.
And then there's different materials you're painting. So it's metal being painted. It's also like a plastic, we'll call it. Part of the cool process that we actually have a 1 of 5 E90 M3 in fire orange that we can look at to make sure orange peel's the same, and also the matte finishes, because a lot of places on the car, underneath the hatch, underneath the hood, are actually a matte satin finish, and we're mimicking this build the way BMW would do it. So we actually have a reference point for that. And is that unpainted? I mean, it's painted, but it's not cleared, right? Underneath?
It's cleared. There's a flattening agent that gets put in the clear.
So it's like a satin or a matte clear.
There's different sheen levels, and that's what we got to play with. That's the beauty of having the other car.
Having the reference.
Yep.
So when we look at the reference, we can see where the matte stops and where the gloss begins, like up where the fenders are, around under the hood and on the engine bay, and then also in the back. So that's a really cool reference to have. And then that also helps us reference the color, which the color is really important here. And you can't just spray it based on the color code. That gets you, what, 90% of the way there?
Yeah, we can talk all about that, but yeah, that's a big process.
Yeah, so we also have the car here that has never been painted. We're gonna go out there and show you guys those spray outs next.
So basically there's multiple paint companies. There's multiple paint lines within different paint companies. There's multiple formulas for every paint code. You can take 50 different paint lines, spray out their standard formula, and they all look different. So this is what we gotta do. We gotta go find different formulas. We have to tweak them. We have to make our own formulas, and that's very time consuming.
Well, which is why when you need to paint a hood for us or a trunk for us, you have the whole entire car here. Yes. It's not just the hood, or we just don't tell you, hey, this is the paint code, and
you could spend 8 hours matching the color.
Okay.
Easily. Yep.
So then what happens is they spray the original mix on a card, and then it most likely doesn't match, but then you have to know, like,
add or subtract different toners and
like white
out again
and black and all of that.
They all have different toners in them. They all have a formula. It's a big part of the job, believe it or not.
Yeah, I would argue it's the most important. Now, the funny thing is when you paint a whole entire car,
it becomes less important.
Yeah, because you're doing it all.
But with this particular build, we're making it important.
He's gonna grab the spray outs now, and we're gonna walk out to the car and show you guys the difference in how that all works. Okay, so we're out here with the 1 of 5 E90s in fire orange, and this is our sample car that we're using to not only match the paint, but also mimic the matte finishes and some of the other orange peels and some of the other things that come on an OEM fire orange painted car. He's got some spray outs here, so let's kind of talk through those, Brad, about where we started and where we ended up.
Well, first of all, this one, to be honest, has not been too difficult. Number one, it's a solid color, but the standard formula that we've come up with, what they have, our paint system, as you can see, is super red. I mean, this would not, if you had another car like that next to it, you'd be at a town.
Yeah.
But this is industry standard. It's not bad. And then we just made some tweaks to it, take a little black out, take a little red out, add this, subtract that, and then we just ended up with this right here, which is pretty spot on.
Yeah.
It's a good way to see it.
It is. I can't even see the line difference between the paint and then the spray out.
So I mean, that's it. It's just a process.
And you only did 3.
We did a couple other ones, but we kept these 3 for other cars.
Closest.
Yeah, because other cars, even other BMWs can be slightly different.
Hood's open now, and this is where we wanted to kind of show you guys the difference in the sheen, I guess is the word that you used, and the different clears. Matte under here or satin?
They're all names. I mean, satin I would call it probably, but it's just different levels of sheen.
And that's how this would be, and this is exactly how the finished wagon will be underneath here. We're gonna have actually the stickers replicated as well.
You can see the overspray right here.
Yeah, from the factory where they painted that. Is that clear overspray?
That's clear overspray, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll do our best to duplicate that also.
You can clearly see where the non-gloss is, where it starts and stops.
Yep.
Even the shock towers are also that matte finish without the clear. This is like a nerd thing for me, because when I see a car that I know has been painted, one of the giveaways that I know when it's been painted is that in here is all cleared. These cars weren't that way from the factory. So for me, the correct way is the factory way. That way it always looks the same. It always looks how it's supposed to look, and it doesn't give it away right away.
Yeah, if you know these cars, look at a car immediately.
One second. And it bothers me because you go through all this work and all this disassembly, and then you make this very small mistake putting gloss in here. But to me, it's incorrect. So we're done here talking about the process. Let's get in and get started on the paint, and we'll show you guys all that process and how that works. We have the car in the booth. The last time you guys joined us, we actually were outside of the booth. The fabrication had just been done, and Brad was prepping the fenders and prepping the car for paint. This is the white primer, which is required, I think, for the fire orange. Is that correct?
Yeah, it needs to have a very light ground coat.
So different paint colors.
It's very transparent, translucent color.
So if this was like a purple, like a dark color, would it have a black base or
They're
gray?
all a little bit different, but it probably would have maybe a gray. Depends on how dark the purple is.
All the fabrication work was done. Brad has hung the doors and the fenders and the hood. And these aren't really the final places, but they're almost to the point. So when he paints the car, the stuff is painted correctly, directionally, and all the gaps are done. And then once the car is painted, he's actually gonna remove the hood and the fenders, and then it's gonna go move back to PSI so we can start assembling the car and do the build. And then it will actually come back here for the final fitment and buff and everything that the car requires for SEMA.
So basically this is just the color that's in here. It's actually not cleared. This is colored in here so that all the areas way deep in here have color. You cannot get to that from the out. If I try to paint it like that right now, it'd be very difficult. So you get it all colored in so I can swing the doors as I paint it, and then it won't have any tape lines. It'll be fluent throughout the panel. So more like the factory did it.
This is now being taped off. So what's the purpose of the tape and the masking? So we don't get that paint everywhere on the car?
Yeah, I mean, it's so you don't paint the areas that you don't want to paint. It keeps the contamination and dirt and dust, the holes all in the body and the chassis, keeps anything from blowing out of there.
Gotcha.
Because you're blowing air all over the thing when you're painting that.
When you're painting the car. Okay,
that's why it's very critical to get it bagged up tight like that.
Today you're gonna put down all the exterior color of the actual chassis on the doors. You said you're gonna swing the doors. What about the hood? You're gonna open the hood also?
I'm gonna open and shut the hood just in order to do the outer edge of the hood, just because it won't get paint down in there very well.
Gotcha, and we're trying to mimic that way of where it's gloss and where it's satin. And then I believe the engine bay is
satin clear, yeah.
The satin cleared, which is what we matched from that E90 fire orange that we had here. Basically, you're gonna put the color down, and then the next step is the clear.
Clear coat, yeah.
Clear coat. So how many coats of clear are we gonna do on this?
3.
Which is kind of a lot.
The manufacturer requires like 2. They want to achieve 2 mils of clear dry.
Okay.
We'll put a little bit more on there, so it gives us a little bit of working room to get the finish where we want it at the end.
And to get it to pop a little bit more. And then of course, we're gonna have hands on the car at the shop.
Yeah.
And even though I have blankets already pulled, I have special fender covers for all the areas that are paint, there's gonna be things that happen which we need to be able to have that clear in order to polish and finish the car. So it's a really important
Just a safer bet, yeah.
Absolutely, and I think it's a better long run step. We're not gonna do this again with this car. This is on the car for life. It needs to be done 100%. So I guess the roof too.
We already painted the roof, cleared, done.
Roof is cleared and done.
Yep, and it's bagged. And the reason we did that is, well, a couple different reasons. Number one, it's way up there. So
because of the height, because the way we built the dollies was very high, so he needed to paint that.
And it cuts down the complexity of the spray job. If I can not have to worry about that, I don't have to hang over the car and try to clear the roof while I got wet paint right here. So it's just the way to do it.
So is there a strategy for painting a car like this that you know everyone's going to be looking at? Is there a certain way? Do you do every car the same? Is it sprayed? Is all the colors different the way you spray it? What's the game plan here? I mean, you've been doing this for how long? I mean, 30 years?
Yeah, about 30 years. Everybody does a little bit different, but typically you have to stagger around the car and chase a wet edge, basically.
Gotcha.
And where you start and where, how you do it, it depends on the paint booth, depends on the paint, depends on the painter. Everybody's got their little thing, so I'll look at it. I don't even know how I'm gonna do it yet, but I'll look at it.
It just comes to you, and that's what,
and where you start and stop, like you're not just gonna walk down the whole side of the car with a spray gun, right? You you start and stop. I might stop here on one coat, but I won't stop there again on the second coat.
Sure.
Or else you'll have too much buildup. There'll be too much
Sort of that overlap. All right, so that's it, guys. Let me get out of the booth so Brad can start painting the car.